So, Act 2, Scene 3, and this is immediately after Duncan's murder. So, if you remember at the end of the last scene, there was a knocking at the door, and so then we kind of jump over to where the front door is, and there's a porter, so that's the guy who's opening the front door, the doorman. And a couple things to know is that he has been up late drinking. He's been up all night long. He's drunk. And he serves three purposes for us. The first is that it's comic relief. So at this point in the play, we've seen some drama with the murder, we've seen some horror with the witches, and so now, like in any good movie or play, there's the need for some comedy. So Shakespeare wrote him in to kind of be like a bumbling idiot, and the second reason that he's important, you'll see in a second, he mentions the word equivocator. We've talked about this before in terms of the witches and how they are intentionally trying to equivocate or mess with Macbeth. He's talking about it in terms of alcohol, how alcohol messes with you. But that idea is really important. And then the third reason is that the porter is intending not to be the gatekeeper of Macbeth's castle of Inverness. He's pretending to be the gatekeeper of hell, which, like he thinks is funny, but actually it's ironic because this place is closer to hell than he thinks, right? He just doesn't know it. Lady Macbeth and Macbeth are pretty evil. So those are the three reasons for the porter. And here we go.
Here's a knocking indeed. If a man were porter of Hellgate, he should have old turning the key.
Oh my word, and you can even tell, based on that weird voice, that, whoever was reading it knows that he's supposed to be kind of, like, off and funny.
Knock, knock, knock. Who's there in the name of Beelzebub? Here's a farmer that hanged himself on the expectation of plenty. Come in time, have napkins enow about you here, you'll sweat for it. Knock, knock. Who's there in the other devil's name? Faith, here's an equivocator that could swear in both the scales against either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sake, yet could not equivocate to heaven. Oh, come in, equivocator. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Faith, here's an English tailor come hither for stealing out of a French hose. Come in, tailor, here you may roast your goose. Knock, knock, never at quiet, what are you? But this place is too cold for hell. I'll devil porter it no further. I had thought to have let in some of all professions that go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire. Anon, anon, I pray you, remember the porter.
Okay, so then in walks Macduff.
Was it so late, friend, ere you went to bed, that you do lie so late?
Faith, sir, we were carousing till the second cock, and drink, sir, is a great provoker of three things.
What three things does drink especially provoke?
Okay, wow, they're really playing up that he's drunk, clearly, based on how he's talking. So basically, Macduff is like, wow, you've been up all night. So the porter starts to talk about what happens to you when you drink too much. So this is the part where people would have thought it was funny back then. And so people would be laughing at this.
Marry, sir, nose painting, sleep, and urine. Lechery, sir, it provokes and unprovokes. It provokes the desire, but it takes away the performance. Therefore, much drink may be said to be an equivocator with lechery. It makes him and it mars him. It sets him on and it takes him off. It persuades him and disheartens him, makes him stand to and not stand to. In conclusion, equivocates him in his sleep, and giving him the lie, leaves him.
I believe drink gave thee the lie last night.
That it did, sir, in the very throat of me. But I requited him for his lie, and I think, being too strong for him, though he took up my leg sometime, yet I made a shift to cast him.
Is thy master stirring? Our knocking has awaked him. Here he comes.
Okay, so now the porter has exited, and Macduff and Lennox are inside the castle.
Good morrow, noble sir.
Good morrow, both.
Is the king stirring, worthy thane?
Not yet.
He did command me to call timely on him. I have almost slipped the hour.
I'll bring you to him.
I know this is a joyful trouble to you, but yet 'tis one.
The labor we delight in, physics pain. This is the door.
I'll make so bold to call, for 'tis my limited service.
Okay, so Macduff announces that Duncan asked him to come over in the morning and wake him up early. And so Macduff leaves the room to go upstairs to Duncan's bedroom to get him, as promised.
Goes the king hence today?
He does. He did appoint him so.
The night has been unruly. Where we lay, our chimneys were blown down, and, as they say, lamentings heard in the air, strange screams of death, and prophesying with accents terrible of dire combustion and confused events, new hatched to the woeful time. The obscure bird clamored the livelong night. Some say the earth was feverous and did shake.
So this is the first time that we see the connection between the leader or the ruler and the land or nature. And so unbeknownst to Lennox, he starts to talk about what a weird night it was. You know, we heard screams, the weather was bizarre, the wind was crazy. And what Shakespeare's trying to do here is show that the reason for all of that is because of Duncan's murder. Just nobody knows it yet.
'Twas a rough night.
My young remembrance cannot parallel a fellow to it. Oh, horror, 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 tongue nor heart cannot conceive nor name thee.
What's the matter?
Confusion now hath made his masterpiece. Most sacrilegious murder hath broke ope the Lord's anointed temple and stole thence the life of the building.
So Macduff comes back in the room. Clearly he's upset because he's gone into Duncan's room and he now sees that Duncan is murdered.
What is't you say? The life?
Mean you his majesty? Approach the chamber and destroy your sight with a new Gorgon. Do not bid me speak. See and then speak yourselves. Awake, awake, ring the alarum bell. Murder and treason. Banquo, Donalbain, Malcolm, awake. Shake off this downy sleep, death's counterfeit, and look on death itself. Up, up, and see the great doom's image. Malcolm, Banquo, as from your graves rise up and walk like sprites to countenance this horror. Ring the bell.
So Macduff wants to wake everybody up and now, announce that Duncan's been killed.
What's the business that such a hideous trumpet calls to parley the sleepers of the house? Speak, speak.
Oh, gentle lady, 'tis not for you to hear what I can speak. The repetition in a woman's ear would murder as it fell. Oh, Banquo, Banquo, our royal master's murdered.
Woe, alas, what, in our house?
So this is incredibly ironic because Lady Macbeth says, "What's the problem?" And Macduff says, "Oh, gentle lady, 'tis not for you to hear what I can speak." So he assumes that because she's a woman, she's too delicate, too sensitive to hear about Duncan's murder. Obviously, we know, because of dramatic irony, that that's not the case at all. She's far from gentle and sensitive.
Too cruel anywhere. Dear Duff, I prithee, contradict thyself and say it is not so.
Had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived a blessed time, for from this instant there's nothing serious in mortality. All is but toys. Renown and grace is dead. The wine of life is drawn, and the mere lees is left this vault to brag of.
Too cruel anywhere. Dear Duff, I prithee, contradict thyself and say it is not so.
Oh,
Had I
whoops.
but died an hour.
Sorry.
What is amiss?
You are, and do not know it. The spring, the head, the fountain of your blood is stopped. The very source of it is stopped.
Your royal father's murdered.
Oh, by whom?
Those of his chamber, as it seemed, had done it. Their hands and faces were all badged with blood. So were their daggers, which, unwiped, we found upon their pillows. They stared and were distracted. No man's life was to be trusted with them.
Oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them.
Wherefore did you so?
Okay, so when Macbeth ran out of the room to go pretend to see what happened to Duncan, obviously he already knew what happened. He just comes back and says that he actually went up and killed the guards. So we talked a lot about this in class, how there was a lot of back and forth about whether or not Macbeth could actually go through with murdering Duncan. We saw no back and forth when it came to the guards. So suddenly murders become a little bit easier for him. And, we'll see as the play continues, it gets easier and easier. The reason, obviously, for himself that he killed the guards is that he didn't want them to talk. So they would obviously wake up and deny having killed Duncan. And so in order to protect himself and to protect Lady Macbeth, he just kills them right away.
Who can be wise, amazed, temperate, and furious, loyal and neutral in a moment? No man. The expedition my violent love outrun, the pauser, reason. Here lay Duncan, his silver skin laced with his golden blood, and his gashed stabs looked like a breach in nature for ruin's wasteful entrance. There the murderers, steeped in the colours of their trade, their daggers unmannerly breached with gore. Who could refrain, that had a heart to love, and in that heart courage to make love known?
Help me hence, ho.
Look to the lady.
Okay, so first of all, Lady Macbeth pretends to faint. We know that she's not actually upset. But back up here is where Macbeth tells this story to everybody about why he killed the guards, because initially Macduff says, well, why did you do it? And he comes back and says that when he walked into the room and he saw Duncan's blood, and, he loved his king so much that he basically couldn't refrain. Like, he couldn't keep himself from killing the guards, like, as retribution for what they just did to his beloved king. Obviously, huge lies.
Why do we hold our tongues that most may claim this argument for ours?
What should be spoken here, where our fate, hid in an auger hole, may rush and seize us? Let's away. Our tears are not yet brewed,
nor our strong sorrow upon the foot of motion.
So, just on their own, the two brothers start to talk because they're suspicious, so we'll talk about that in a second.
Look to the lady, and when we have our naked frailties hid that suffer in exposure, let us meet and question this most bloody piece of work to know it further. Fears and scruples shake us. In the great hand of God I stand, and thence against the undivulged pretense I fight of treasonous malice. And so do I.
So all. Let's briefly put on manly readiness and meet in the hall together.
Well contented.
All right, so they all agree that they want to do something about this and talk more about it. Everybody except for the two brothers exit, so the two of them start to talk.
What will you do? Let's not consort with them. To show an unfelt sorrow is an office which the false man does easy. I'll to England.
To Ireland, I. Our separated fortune shall keep us both the safer. Where we are, there's daggers and men's smiles. The near in blood, the nearer bloody.
This murderous shaft that's shot hath not yet lighted, and our safest way is to avoid the aim. Therefore, to horse, and let us not be dainty of leave-taking, but shift away. There's warrant in that theft which steals itself when there's no mercy left.
So, they decide, the brothers, that they're not safe where they are, and they decide that it would be better for them to separate. Malcolm says he will go to England. Donalbain says he's going to Ireland, and he explains it himself. He says, our separated fortune shall keep us both the safer. So there's a better chance that they can stay safe if they separate rather than if they're together. And then he recognizes where we are. There's daggers in men's smiles, the near in blood, the nearer bloody. So that means that people appear one way to their faces, but behind their back, the reality is very different. They'll literally stab them in the back. So they know they're not safe. They know that nobody's to be trusted. And then obviously you see the connection between appearance versus reality. And then we end the scene with an heroic couplet with theft and left, which lets us know that there'll definitely be more murder as the play goes on. And that's it.